Same time, Bob Hercules, who is the co-director, saw one of his interns, saw a picture in his office of him and Maya Angelou, and he had done a voiceover with her, and the intern said, "You know Maya Angelou?" And he said, "Well, I did a voiceover with her." And then he began to think, I don't think there's been a documentary on her. So we were in parallel universes. And I say this because this is how things happen. And there happened to be a woman, M.K. Saipti, at Harpo when I was there, who happened to be the editor to his college newspaper. And so he's told her about the idea, and she said, "You need to meet Rita Whack, because she's working on a similar idea." He had some inroads into American Masters. He had done the Bill T. Jones and the Joffrey Ballet. We had lunch, and after 20 minutes, we said, let's do this. We went to American Masters. Susan Lacey was there at the time. Now Michael Cantor is there. And they took one look at the one-page pitch we had and said, we'll do it. And then we began to embark on raising $1.2 million. And that was in part why it took 5 years. And I thought it was going to be easy to raise the money. I'd say Maya Angelou and people would take out their checkbooks. And that didn't happen because film changed in what people want to see changed, and public television doesn't give a call to action. Buy a cell phone for $69.99. It's a branding message, and money for the arts had been squeezed. But once again, the 5 years that it took to make this film, it took the 5 years to make the film. When we started, Maya Angelou was alive, and she was very much a part of, though she couldn't say anything journalistically, I would say, who knew you in the 50s? We need to cover these time periods. And she would give me names. We would come up with names on our own. And so as we put this film together, the role of the filmmaker is very different from doing subject versus subject matter. Subject, a human being; subject matter, racism, the women's movement. You're working with a person. You have to deal with the soul of that person, the fact that she's experiencing and re-experiencing her life. And I think in the end it was cathartic for her. I think that she found it healing to do this film. And I'm very happy about that. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the research. You will see 314 photographs. We went through over 4,000 to pick that, and we still did not go through all the photographs that were there. This is a big story, and it was well documented. People call it the embarrassment of riches. It was not embarrassing. I would still be looking at those photographs had we not gotten into Sundance and had to stop and finish this thing. But it was so engaging to see the time period, and I think a lot of filmmakers are frustrated historians, and as I mentioned to you, you want to excavate the history, and so you'll see that. We went through about 200 hours of video to come up with the 29 minutes of video that you see in the film. And so the process, in my mind, is one of content and combing the content through so that nobody says, she knew James Baldwin. But you see the relationship of James Baldwin combed through the film. That's an important thing to do. You naturally, organically foreshadow their meeting in Paris in 1954, him being a part of her decision to marry across a color line in 1974. And so you see them grow together. You also have the wonderful archival of her work, 7 autobiographical memoirs, 5 of them audio recorded. We decided early on that there would be no narrator because once you hear her voice, you don't want to hear another voice. And that became complicated by her death on May 28th of 2014, we weren't finished. We couldn't go back and say, talk a little bit more about this. After we regrouped after that loss, we dug deeper into the archives. So I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and go, Germany, where's the tape from Germany? The German television had done some work. And then you would find work from the BBC, and you would find a way for her to start her story when she was 40, tape that would come from when she was 60 and end when she was 80. And all of us know or will know that the way you think about your mother at 40, 60, and 80 is different. But if I comb that voice through without telling you I did that, you get to see her in all these time periods, and you get to grow with her. And so those are some of the technicalities that happen with making the film. As I say, I think it is important to chase the story until the story is chasing you. Many people think they know Maya Angelou. That's why, as you'll see in this film, one young woman made the unfortunate mistake of calling her Maya. That didn't work for her at 62. And it didn't work for her for a number of reasons historically. African Americans since slavery would name their daughters queen and princess. So instead of hey girl or Millie or come here, you would have to say queen. It was a way to have some respect. All of her life she called people Miss Whack and Mr. This, and she wanted the household help to be called Mrs. Crisp instead of Mrs. Crisp having to say to Dr. So-and-so of the university or Ambassador Young or President Clinton, they would also have to say to her, Mrs. Crisp, may I have more of this? So that she would be respected. So she had an attitude that human beings needed to be respected. It was told and started with the story of her mother, Grandmother Henderson, who was matriarchal. It was her father's mother. And she owned land in the South, and she owned land that poor whites lived on. And one day some young white girls came into the clearing, and they had one do a handstand, and they had no underwear on, and it was their way of disrespecting her. And Grandmother Henderson still had to say, Miss Kelly, Miss Janie, or whoever their names were. She couldn't call them out of her name, and they could say to her, hey, Annie, look at me, and she had to look. So Maya Angelou developed a sense of what Black women then called a certain comportment with a way to carry yourself. This is also not a hagiography. In her time, she spent some years, or not years, but she spent some time as a prostitute. She spent some time as a madam. We told one of those stories. We didn't feel the need to tell both, but we told those stories because you needed to know that, as she knew, people were in process and they could still recover from whatever they had been and not be a victim of their past. Many people live in their past, which is so curious because we can't recreate the lunch we just had, but we'll let that thing bother us for years, and she didn't do that. So it took us 5 years to make the film. Personally, I learned a lot about being present. I also learned a lot about encountering defeats and not being defeated. I also learned that we haven't come as far as we need to. If you look at our political situation, I'll leave that there. It's very distressing for me to be an American right now. I'm embarrassed, to be honest with you. It was important for her to have the present popular culture in her back pocket. She wrote a poem for Beyonce and Jay-Z's daughter, Blue, that hung above their bed. She was called upon by Michael Jackson's mother to write a poem when he died. She sat down with Common and he would do one stanza of her poetry in what she called his preferred language of hip-hop. She stayed relevant and made commentary. And once she told me that people in her age group should be ashamed to die because they had not done enough for the young people who were coming up. Her future and the legacy of this work is unknown, but what I would like to see is everywhere it was a course adoption. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I'd like to see the documentary in those colleges and universities and high schools. We are working on all of those things. We've decided to do an Oscar run with the film, which means we had to go back to math and come up with more money and try to show it to the 301 members of the Academy to get voted into the short list, which is 15, to then be nominated for the 5, and we're all learning. So when she said to me, "Do you know what you're asking?" I didn't know that just by doing the best job I could do every day, I would present this film in Cape Town, South Africa, where my brothers and sisters say that apartheid is over, but they live as though there's still apartheid, and 60% of the audiences that came to see the film were men, and they needed encouragement to be there. I've taken it to Sheffield, England, and I'm here now, and I've just come back from Trinidad and Montreal. I had no idea. All I was doing was trying to do the best job that I could do. That's another lesson that she taught me, and she had a saying, "Do your work so well that no one can take their eyes off you," whatever it is. Whether you're the person who does the bus or whatever you do, do your best at it. You could be encouraging to someone. So by going to mayaangelofilm.com or on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you can follow the film. And I would love to entertain your questions about it.